Okay, so imagine this. You're standing on a ridge and you're looking out over a whole civilization at its absolute peak.
Right.
We're talking gold shimmering on temple walls, bustling markets, a full-blown golden age, as they call it.
The whole 9 yards.
And then you see the ships on the horizon, the ones that are going to burn it all down.
And here's the twist.
The person standing on that ridge watching the world end isn't a general, it's not an emperor.
It's a young woman.
And the man leading those ships, he's holding her hand.
That's quite an image to start with. And it's terrifying because it's not just some movie script.
No.
It's a real pivot point in history. We're looking at 16th century Mexico,
Yeah.
a moment where the entire trajectory of a continent just shifted.
And usually, when we learn about this in school, it's all maps and dates and
All
battles.
those big picture stuff.
Exactly. But today, we're zooming way in, right to the human element. Specifically, we're diving into a book called The Aztec Princess, Malinche's Legacy of Conquest and Betrayal.
Or Aztec Illavarasi, which is the original Tamil title.
And look, this isn't just a biography. It's framed like this massive historical epic, but it's condensed into a really tight narrative.
Right. It's a very focused piece of work. It's only about, 12 chapters?
Yeah.
Maybe 89 pages?
Yeah.
But the weight of it is just enormous. It's trying to do something incredibly difficult.
It is.
It wants to tell the story of the fall of the Aztec Empire through the eyes of the one person that history seems to hate, or at least deeply misunderstand, Malinche.
Misunderstood is putting it so lightly. I mean, we're going to get into all the heavy stuff, but just look at her resume for a second.
It's a wild ride.
The book lays out this insane character arc. She starts as a princess, she ends up a slave, and then somehow she becomes the right hand and the lover of Hernan Cortez.
The conqueror himself.
I mean, that's not a normal career path.
It's a tragic trajectory, and I think that's where we really have to start. You can't get the betrayal part of the title without first understanding the slave part. The narrative really emphasizes that she was born into royalty, into this golden age of Aztec culture.
Yeah.
But she was sold into slavery.
By her own people, basically, which is a crucial detail, isn't it?
That's everything.
Because later, when she gets called a traitor, you have to ask, didn't her world kind of betray her first?
Exactly. That is the psychological bedrock of this whole story. She goes from the very top of the pyramid to the absolute bottom.
Stripped of everything.
Of agency, of status.
Yeah.
And then the Spanish arrive. And suddenly this woman, who's been completely discarded by her own culture, is in a position where she's the only one who can talk to the invaders.
Let's unpack that role for a second. Translator. It sounds so, I don't know, bureaucratic.
Yeah, like an admin job.
Right. Like she's just swapping verbs and nouns. But in this context, translation is a weapon, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the power dynamic there. You have two civilizations that have never met. They don't know each other's gods, rules, intentions. So the person who controls the flow of information, they control reality. If Cortés says, "We come in peace," and she translates it as surrender or die,
History changes.
or vice versa,
Yep.
she becomes the filter for the entire conquest.
And the book suggests she wasn't just a passive filter, she was a player. But this is where it gets really messy.
Mm-hmm.
The book outlines this specific triangle of struggle. I found this fascinating. It lists 3 corners: power, love, and betrayal.
And that triangle is the engine of the whole novel. You've got power, the clash of empires, the guns versus obsidian blades. That's the backdrop.
Sure.
Then you have betrayal, the accusation that she sold out her entire race. But then, smack in the middle, you have love. And honestly, that's the hardest one to swallow.
Yeah, let's stop right there. Love. Really, I have to be the skeptic here. We're talking about a conquistador and a slave.
I know.
Can you really call that love, or is that just a nice way of dressing up survival?
That is the million-dollar question. And to its credit, the book doesn't give us an easy answer. It just sits right in that discomfort. There's a line in the narrative, it's like a voiceover query, that asks, did she actually love Cortés? Or was she fighting to save her people?
See, that second option changes everything. If she's fighting to save her people, then she's not a lover.
No.
She's a spy. Or a diplomat playing some kind of 4D chess with a gun to her head.
But the text also talks about a woman's heart being crushed.
Yeah.
That implies genuine emotion. And I think that's what makes this whole story so difficult.
We want a simple answer.
We want her to be one thing, right? The victim who had no choice, or the villain who wanted power. But the book suggests she might have been both.
Both at the same time.
She might have genuinely fallen for this powerful man from another world while simultaneously watching him destroy her home.
That is incredibly messed up. It's like a romance novel written inside a horror story.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And speaking of romance novels, we have to talk about the atmosphere the book creates. The
Visuals.
cover art, the descriptions. It all gives us this very specific visual language.
Yeah, I was looking at that. If you didn't know the history and you just saw the cover, you'd think this was a straightforward historical romance.
Totally. You've got this lush golden lighting, a stone temple in the background,
Classic Aztec architecture.
and you have these two figures, Malinche and Cortez, and they look intimate. Foreheads touching, a soft gaze.
It creates a kind of cognitive dissonance, doesn't it?
It does. The visual screams intimacy,
Mhm.
but the text promises bloody pages of an invasion.
Right. It's almost like a trap. You get lured in by the Golden Age aesthetic, the sunset over the temple.
And then you realize that sunset is actually the empire ending.
Wow.
I think the book uses that whole romance aesthetic to highlight the tragedy. It's contrasting the desire for gold, which is cold and hard and external, with a woman's heart, which is soft, internal, and vulnerable. The tragedy is that these two things should not mix. A love affair shouldn't decide the fate of a continent. But in this story, it does.
That binary gold versus heart is really strong in the text. It's like the book is asking, what's stronger, the greed of an empire or the feelings of one woman?
And looking at history,
It seems like gold won.
materially, yes. The gold won, the Aztec Empire fell, the temples were torn down. But the legacy, which is the other key word in that title,
Right.
the legacy is about the heart. We aren't talking about Cortés' bank account today. We're talking about Malinche's choices.
Yeah.
The book frames this as a legacy of conquest and betrayal.
Let's dig into that word, betrayal. The Tamil term used in the notes is turogam.
Mm-hmm.
It feels heavier than just cheating or lying. The text explicitly calls it betrayal of one's own race. That is a label that does not wash off.
It's the ultimate stigma. I mean, in Mexico today, there's a term malinquista.
Oh, wow.
It refers to someone who prefers foreign things over their own culture. It's an insult. It basically means you are a Malinche, a sellout.
And this book is grappling with the origin of that insult. It's asking, is that fair? But is it? I mean, playing devil's advocate again, she literally helped the guys who toppled the civilization. If that's not betrayal, what is?
Well, let's look at the nuance the book offers. It mentions the sacrifices of an Aztec princess.
Sacrifices.
Now, why use that word? A traitor acts for selfish, gain money, power, safety. A sacrifice implies giving something up that you love for a greater good.
So the argument is what? That she sacrificed her own reputation to save lives.
Potentially. I mean, think about the inevitable. The Spanish had superior technology, they had smallpox, they had alliances with other indigenous groups who hated the Aztecs.
Where the fall is probably coming anyway?
It was very likely coming regardless.
Yeah.
So maybe Malinche saw herself as the bridge that could prevent a total bloody extermination. Maybe she thought, if I can interpret, if I can negotiate, maybe we don't all have to die.
So she wasn't holding the door open for the invaders. She was standing in the doorway trying to control the traffic.
That's a generous reading, but it's one the book invites us to consider. It says, the story travels on a thin line between betrayal and love.
And that's where the drama lives.
That's it. If she enjoys the power too much, she's a villain. If she suffers too much, she's a victim. The narrative seems to want her to be somewhere in the middle,
A complex human being.
making impossible choices in a timeline that, like the text says, turned in a new direction.
It really challenges you to put yourself in her shoes. And the book does that explicitly. It connects the grandeur and ruin of the empire to the personal ruin of this one woman.
And that connection is key. The ruin isn't just buildings falling down, it's the destruction of an identity.
Right.
When the Aztec Empire falls, who is she? She's not an Aztec princess anymore. She's not an Aztec in the traditional sense. She's something new. She is the mother of the first mestizo child, the mix of Spanish and indigenous.
She is literally the mother of modern Mexico.
She is, which makes the title Legacy of Conquest so literal. Her legacy is the people who live there now, but that betrayal part hangs over it like a dark cloud.
It does, and I think that's why this story, even though it's 500 years old, feels so incredibly modern. We are still obsessed with the idea of sellout.
And with how women in power navigate relationships with powerful men.
It's the triangle of struggle all over again. Power, love, betrayal. You could find that in a corporate boardroom today or a political scandal.
Precisely. The costumes change, the golden age changes, but the human dynamics don't. That's why a book like this resonates. It takes a massive geopolitical event and shrinks it down to two people staring at each other, trying to figure out if they're enemies or lovers.
And that voiceover script aspect, the internal monologue, adds that layer of doubt. It makes me think about how we judge historical figures.
How so?
We look at the outcome empire fallen, and we work backward to find the person to blame. And Melinda is just. She's the easy target.
She's the convenient scapegoat. It's much easier to say she betrayed us
Yeah.
than to say our empire had structural weaknesses and many, many enemies.
We sold her into slavery first, so maybe she didn't owe us a thing.
And that's the point that really sticks with me. If your country sells you, do you still owe it your loyalty? The book forces you to confront that ethical dilemma.
That stops you in your tracks. It completely redefines the whole concept of treason.
And amidst all this heavy political philosophy, we shouldn't lose sight of the heart.
Right.
The book describes a woman's heart being crushed. It suggests that, regardless of the politics, on a personal level, this was a tragedy. She loved, she lost, she was used, and she was discarded.
It reminds me of that visual again, the stone temple standing tall, enduring, while the people in front of it are fleeting. The empire is this massive, unmoving thing until it isn't.
And the people are just dust in the wind. But this particular dust melange, she clogged the gears of the machine. She changed how the machine worked.
And that's the mission of this deep dive, really, to understand how one person can tilt the axis of the world.
It's a study in agency.
Yeah.
We often think of women in history, especially in this era, as bystanders.
Yes, side characters.
But this book shouts that she was the main character. Even if it was a tragedy, it was her tragedy. And that's the definition of an epic, isn't it? It's not about the size of the army. It's about the size of the conflict within the soul.
And this book argues that the war inside Malinche's heart was just as violent as the war for Aztec gold.
Absolutely.
So we've gone from the golden age to the bloody pages of invasion. We've looked at the princess, the slave, the lover, the traitor. We've tried to decode that triangle of struggle.
And we've seen that the line between love and betrayal is terrifyingly thin.
As we wrap this up, I'm left thinking about that word legacy. We usually think of legacy as what you leave behind. Money, buildings, laws.
Something solid.
Yeah. But for Malinche, her legacy is a question mark. It's a debate that hasn't ended in 5 centuries.
And that leads me to a final thought for you to carry with you.
I'm ready. Leave us with something to chew on.
We spent this whole time asking if she was a traitor or a victim. But consider this. The history books were written by the men who conquered, or the men who were conquered. They both have reasons to paint her in a certain light.
Okay.
But does this novel suggest that maybe her betrayal was actually the ultimate form of agency?
How do you mean?
In a world that wanted to crush her, first her own people who enslaved her, then the invaders who wanted to use her, she managed to become the most important person in the room. Perhaps the real betrayal
Go on.
wasn't against her people, but against the expectation that she should just be a silent victim.
Wow. That turns the whole narrative upside down. Maybe she wasn't a traitor to her race. She was a traitor to the role she was assigned.
And that is a dangerous thing to be in any century.
Is it possible for love to exist genuinely amidst the destruction of one's own world? Or is survival the only true love story? That is something I'm going to be thinking about for a long time.
It's a story written in ink, gold, and blood. And it's worth reading.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the complex world of the Aztec princess. Keep questioning the history you think you know. We'll see you on the next one.